Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my man Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And Nate, we have a one-game Thursday night slate here after there were 13 games, 26 teams playing in the NBA last night on a Wednesday. We are down to Dallas at Detroit. -8 for Dallas in this one. We'll talk about that in a sec. As you mentioned, Detroit seems to play every time there's just a one-game slate in the NBA. Weird scheduling this season so far. I believe the Spurs and Lakers have played 19 times already, so a lot of weird stuff going on. But we'll get into all of that and this. We've also got a player props video to choose from this game, 4 props for you from this game. And then we also have a sort of early season, let's say a third of the way through MVP discussion, some of the top candidates there and some potential juice that you could lay down and get back if you want to put down some money on some MVPs right now. So, Nate, let's go ahead and just get right into this slate, which is one game, and talk about Dallas at Detroit.
Yeah, I don't understand why you're going to have a standalone game on December 1st with no college championships or anything going on, and you're going to make it Detroit. But here we are. We know Cade Cunningham's out. Jaden Ivey questionable. And since Cade went down with that shin injury, Detroit's lost 10 of 12, but just like they were at the end of last season with Cade, just covering in half their games. So good luck betting a spread right here. They have only covered once at home in that span, but the over is a little bit more of a trend to look at, I guess. 7 and 3 to the over in their last 10 here at home. At home, their defensive rating is what you want to look at, is 120 this season versus 112 on the road. Pace about the same either way. And so you get Dallas and their struggles on the road, pretty equivalent to another Western Conference contender that you might look at in the Warriors, that they just don't play on the road. They take nights off. Luka gets some rest, and they've just really disappointed. We talked about in that Warriors game how they're 0-9 against the spread after a win too, and they did manage to beat the Warriors, but now on the road, not really a team I want to trust to cover 8 under any circumstances. So maybe, but I think the best thing to do is get some parlay going here, where you have the Mavs on the money line over, and the Mavs is plus 155. And while Dallas is a pretty steady under team, that's more often the case at home, right? On the road, they allow more paint points. They allow a much higher 3-point percentage, 40% versus 32. Much, much worse defensive rating on the road, 10 points worse, right? 118 versus 108. So they've gone 5 and 3 to the over this year on the road. They've gone 6 and 3 to the over this year versus the Eastern Conference. And they just gave up 140 points to your sorry Knicks, who just dominated down low. They let the Knicks, not a great 3-point shooting team. Oh, I'm talking about the Pistons now. The Pistons let the Knicks score 140. They let them shoot 46% from 3. They allow a higher percentage from 3 at home. They got crushed on the boards. The starting lineup was just abysmal. Every starter posted a -20 or worse. And Detroit does not guard point guards well at all. They give up the second most points per game to those point guards. So Luka gonna have a field day here probably, as much as he wants to. I mean, it's such a weak opponent that they might even give Spencer Dinwiddie more work, and that's why I'm looking at his props. But he can also go to town here on, Killian Hayes, who I've routinely said is the worst draft pick since Anthony Bennett, we can say, in the grouping of guards that went ahead of Tyrese Halliburton, who's now just posting the most insane assist-to-turnover ratio ever. And I think that Detroit's ability to get to the line, especially at home where they will get a little bit more of a whistle, will help you feel better about the over here. Their awful defense without Ivy, if he doesn't play, it's going to be even worse. You got Marvin Bagley out there at a necessity to try to get some offense, and he is a god-awful defender, especially in the pick and roll. Luka's going to be calling him out all night. Yeah. So I think over 221 is pretty good, and I do expect the Mavs to get on track here on the road, even though they've yet to really show anything. They're 1-4 against the spread as road favorites this season, and 4-12 against the spread as favorites. Not count on them to cover again, but I think I can count on them to win.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like if you think that Detroit can even cover, then it's just one of those weird NBA things on a Thursday night where maybe there's some weirdness. And if you think Detroit can cover, you also think they can win to a degree, right? I know it's a big spread, but Dallas as an away favorite. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but 1-4 this season, and against the spread, they're failing to cover by 8.5 points. Their margin of victory is minus 3.5 points in these games. They're actually losing these games as away favorites, not even failing to cover the spread, just failing to win. So I'm hesitant to like lay any money on them to just win this game. I either need to feel confident that this is a game where Luka and team, really Luka, is going to come out and set the tone and take this game seriously. Or I'm picking Detroit. Those are really the way my two options. I'm not going to lay any money down on this game, man. Like not on this spread anyway. Like I don't have to, and I'm not going to, and you can't make me. There's other ways to I think bet on this game. If you want to talk about the total, fine. But the thing is, I think Luka is going to have one of those games where he is going to have fun with it in a way, which to me often means assists, potential for a triple double. I think he's going to fill up a lot of the stat line. And I mean, Detroit hasn't been good since Luka's been in the league playing them. He's played them, I believe, 5 times here. And he's averaging, 32 and a half, 10 and a half assists and 9 boards a game in those 5 versus the Pistons. On the road as well, 41 points and 26 points the 2 times he's played there, with a triple double in that 41-point effort as well a few years ago. So it does seem like a team that he likes to dime up, a team that he likes to just sort of have some fun with, because there's nobody that is a legitimate, opponent, like defense to him at all on that team right now. I mean, they do guard small forwards, I guess. Luka's a point guard. He's the size of a small forward, and he can play on the wing like a small forward. He can play down low like a small forward. But my point is, like, Detroit does defend small forwards pretty well this season, as I mentioned recently, because I think that's the position they have the most adults playing at. But there's nobody on this team that's going to be guarding Luka in a way that makes you feel threatened for his ability to get those points. As you mentioned, Detroit's defense even worse at home. Luka a little bit better on the road in a few important shooting categories. But overall, like, this is a game where I'm just looking at Luka to have fun with it, and I don't know what that means. Maybe down the stretch, that means he's able to pull it off, but I would actually feel comfortable taking a few points from Detroit. If I can get it up to about double digits and like 10 or 11 points, I'd feel even better about it. But right now, the way that Dallas is failing to cover against these road teams that they're playing at, that they're much better than and that they're favored against, and failing to cover in any way, shape, or form is pretty bad. Especially the thing that really is killing them is those 2 Nuggets games in a row without Jokic, where they were favored by double digits in both of those, lost one of them and failed to and blew them out in the other one. But still, though that moment in time, there was a bunch of games that they should have won by a lot more on the road, and they failed, and that's where they're at right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, and you talk about Luka having fun with it. Generally on the road, he has fun on offense, and his defensive rating individually is 9 points worse, right in line with the Mavs. So setting the tone there as well. I mean, the defensive rating for the Pistons has fluctuated pretty wildly here. Basically, if they can get lucky with opponents' 3-point percentage, they can keep this game below the total. Otherwise, I think you should feel great about the Mavs total. Their pace is a little bit faster on the road. I mean, seeing the Knicks light it up like this, and the lineup that Detroit is expected to trot out there tonight, their starting lineup should have a real nice game. And it's also a bit of a revenge game for Christian Wood. It's been a couple seasons since he was in Detroit, but True. He's probably going for 20 and 10 as well. Detroit showing no resistance down low, second most paint points allowed. I mean, yeah, you talk about some wonky results possible. I see that more on like a full slate with Dallas, when they just get lost in the shuffle and you're like, Dallas lost to Washington, which, actually is a surprisingly good team. But Detroit, I mean, what have they done to really think that they're capable of pulling that kind of thing off here? I mean, they've lost thrice to the Knicks. They're 3-7 straight up at home. Their only wins are against the Warriors, when they just couldn't even show up in road games. They beat Orlando in the opener, and they beat OKC on a weird game where they got to the line 33 times. which, if you're depending on that much of production at the line without guys to really break anybody down against a pretty solid defense, I don't see Detroit winning is basically where I'm getting at here. I do see Dallas, having the potential to just control this game and score 115 or so, which is where you need to get over this total for them. I just don't feel super confident about anything. I think you could say in terms of how Dallas has been wonky on the road, and then the fact that just Detroit isn't any good.
Yeah, look, we've got 4-player props in this game for you. That's where we feel a little bit more confident. We're able to find some reasons for guys to have some things. There's some trends and a few guys out here and there. So there's some things we can rely on a little bit more in that video. We encourage you to watch that one as well. I would go ahead and, as you're saying, maybe take an over on Dallas's team points here at 114.5. And just feel like the defense for Detroit can't hang. But we'll see if Dallas's defense comes along as well. As we said, it's much worse on the road. So that's a big reason for the fear of Detroit being able to cover and why I would feel better about them covering. But Dallas to cover their 114.5 as well, and a few points. Maybe you like the over with that game theory if you feel comfortable enough as well. So, Nate, let's go ahead and jump into your first prop in this Dallas-Detroit game.
Yeah, not too much to choose from, but I actually feel pretty confident about this first one. Spencer Dinwiddie over 16.5 points, or maybe 21.5 assists with the points, because I just think Luka needs a break for sure. We targeted him in the last game against Golden State, a huge game. And then this is, Dallas's easiest game for a while, to be sure. They got to go to New York. Then they host the Suns. Then they get Denver on a back-to-back. And then they get Milwaukee in their next 4 games after this. So Luka's obviously going to be carrying a huge load in order to be competitive in those ones. And on the road in general, he's kind of taken a step back. We talked about the difference in offensive rating, a few fewer points per game for Luka, and that's meant Dinwiddie picking up more slack, right? So on the road this year, 20.5 points for the man instead of 14.5 at home. He's shooting 57% from the floor, 50% from deep, hitting 3.5 threes. Loves facing those old Eastern Conference foes, has plenty of experience with that. 23 points per game and 5 assists per game his last 5 versus the East, and his last 8 versus Detroit when he was with 3 different teams in this span. 18 points, 5 assists as well. I think you can bank on those numbers. I mean, Detroit is awful against point guards. They give up the second most points per game. And they probably won't have Jaden Ivey out there, which means a lot of playing time for Killian Hayes, who, as I like to say, cannot play in the NBA and was a terrible bust. So there you have it, Spencer Dinwiddie.
Spencer Dinwiddie fading Killian Hayes, as always. Nate Weitzer. I like it. I like Luka assists more right now. He gets the same amount on the road as at home. It's at 8.5, but this is a team that he's dimed up to the tune of 10 assists a game in the 5 times that he's played them in his career. So I think this is, like we said in the game video, I think this is a game that Luka's trying to have fun with and getting a bit more of those peripherals, which means more points for guys like Dinwiddie, who's clearly the second option on offense, especially when it's just he and Luka out there. So I'm going back to my guy, Bojan Bogdanovic. I got it correct. Sometimes I call him Bogey Bogdanovic, but he is Bojan. Over 18.5 points. I mean, dude, I just feel like he keeps getting disrespected. Like, the numbers are there for him without Cade. He's already averaging more than that on the season than the 18.5 there, close to 20 on the season. And without Cade, everything goes up. 22 points per game without him, 19 with him. His minutes go up by 3 a game from 30 to 33. He gets 3 more boards. He gets twice as many assists. And his usage rate goes up from 27% to 21%. So, like, all those numbers, I mean, I would be happy and if you wanted to start throwing other peripherals in there. He's got the ball. Not only is his usage rate up because he's shooting it way more, he's also got the peripherals because he's got the ball in his hands more, it's dribbling it more, and playing more of a point guard role when Cade is not out there. So you could take the assists as well. In his last 10, he's only failed to cover 18 or 19 points 1 time. And Dallas's defense, as we talk about too, is worse on the road. 10 points more a game at than when they're at home. They allow 40.5% from 3 as well, which is really why I just take the points with Bogey. It's minus 110. He's going to hit a couple threes in there, get to the line a few times, and get those 20 points. So I just not even going to mess around with too many other factors in this game and just take the points for Bogey.
Yeah, I mean, you're right that he hasn't failed to cover this. Even when he had an abysmal game from efficiency standpoint in Phoenix, he got to 19 points, 5 turnovers, 9 for 21 from the floor. And the usage is what you're banking on here, because if Jaden Ivey's out as well, It's Boyan's team. He's expanded his game in terms of being able to score at the interior and mid-range levels too. So it's not like you just run him off the three-point line. He should be the main guy for Detroit tonight. But Marvin Bagley can also get buckets. Not that he's going to play great defense here, but I think, you look at his 3 games without Ivy this season, his points per game has gone up from 12 to 15. Usage has gone up from 19 to 24%, playing 5 more minutes per game. In his last 2, he's getting you 16 points, 8.5 boards since coming back from injury. And the props are juicy right here. 6.5 rebounds for plus 120. A double-double for Bagley, which he did 2 games ago against Cleveland, a really good rebounding team, plus 800. And Dallas is 29th in rebounding rate right now. Dallas giving up the 6th most points per game to power forwards. I mean, I think he can get 10 points for sure. It's a question, can he board up? And I think the Pistons, after getting embarrassed in their last game by the Knicks, getting out-rebounded by 21, will at least come out with a renewed effort on that end at home here. If there is any sort of positive messaging here, like, look, Bagley, I mean, he had 7 boards in that game in a blowout, even though he's like a negative 20. So, I mean, he's the guy who's supposed to grab these along with your guy, Beef Stew.
Yep, and that's what I'm going to talk about. We talked about both these guys, Bags and Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart. Really the rebounds for both of them. I mean, it's not my favorite bet. The rebounds in this game isn't my initial thought process, right? Like, this is going to be maybe a little bit faster than you're expecting, but I still, the efficiency for Dallas on offense is oftentimes what you bank on when you're that team, is that you're not going to be taking bad shots, turning the ball over. Luka's going to get you wide open and things of that nature. But on the road especially, guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., Reggie Bullock are abysmal right now. Maxi Kleba shooting worse than 30% from 3, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Reggie Bullock, all shooting worse than that from 3. So there's the opportunity for rebounds. Beef Stew's at 7.5 right now. It's low because the last 2 games he's combined for 9 boards against the Knicks and against the Raptors. 2 good rebounding teams, especially on the defensive boards for both of these squads this season. The Knicks are allowing their opponents to get a bunch of rebounds, but in that game they had Mitchell Robinson back for the first time as well, which he was missing a bunch of games, which led to the poor rebounding stats for the Knicks. My point being, the games in which Beef Stew, I'm sorry, we're calling him Beef Stew, so it's Isaiah Stewart, and that's the last time I'm saying Isaiah Stewart, it's Beef Stew. But in the games where he's playing teams that are not as good at rebounding, you see where there's some holes, like in Boston, where he had 9 boards and 10 boards in the last 2 games he played against them. No Rob Will, obviously we know where they're struggling down low a little bit more. Against OKC, same concept. Then you go to Cleveland. Cleveland, he only had 4 boards. Why? Because they're the best rebounding team in the league by far. And then you go back to Milwaukee, who you think they would be better at rebounding, but they're still like 15th or so. So my point is, if you're not a top 15, top 10 rebounding team, then Isaiah Stewart can work the boards a bit better. And that's such as the case against Dallas, who they stand right now as a pretty good rebound team. We know like they're in the top 15, but this is a situation where I think they're going to be playing faster on the road, and that's why there are more opportunities for boards for both Beef Stew and for Bags the third. So that is all the time we have for you in this one, Nate. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. We'll be back with a much fuller slate for you guys on Friday. And until we see you next, happy betting.